how do we tackle responsible enablement, compliance, and the right privacy approach? Because, a lot of this stuff is amazing, and there's probably some people even who might be listening to this and like, yeah, let's go. But there's some challenges here. So maybe we could talk a bit about those and what you're seeing. Maybe you could start us off there in terms of challenges and how you guys are addressing them there.
This one I think is challenging because there's laws, but it's still open to interpretation, and I think every company is going to feel a little bit different about what they've already got in place, what is acceptable for them already from a privacy policy, how this is going to evolve in an AI world. I even think about this sometimes from just a practical perspective. So let's forget compliance and that side of things from a perspective. The only way to use these AI tools properly is to have the data. So you have to get the data. And let's say I'm thinking right now from a lens of like phone calls and conversations that we're having, even a customer meeting. Recording every call is easy. You click the button and it's done. But you have to ask the other person generally if it's okay if I record the call. Like, are you comfortable with me recording the call? And just even that at the outset, it's not like a motion that is so mainstream today where everybody expects every call they're on to be recorded. So I think there's just some nuance there around how that may affect a relationship. There's some awkwardness there when that kind of thing is going on. So, the compliance, privacy piece, I'm not a lawyer. We'll deal with however that has to be. And organizations and their HR teams and how they set this up and their legal firms and whatnot will work through that. We haven't gotten too deep in those yet. But I'm just thinking about from a practical perspective where we want to grab all this information. But
the basic opt-in and starting point. I think there's a few things we've seen, right? To your point, we've seen solutions like Bing Chat Enterprise is a good example where their whole solution is really simple. You open the session, whether it's in the Bing sidebar, in Edge sidebar, or if it's just, you open it. And the second you're done that, it's gone forever. It's deleted. It's not stored. There's no training of the data. There's no storage of the data. So it's a really safe model because essentially you choose when to use this AI tool, to generate some images, do whatever you want to do. And the second you're done that, all of that data is wiped forever. Like, it's not available. There's no history. There's no audit. And so that can work well for like a simple getting started scenario, but then it becomes something like Microsoft Copilot, which we were talking about, where I'm doing like, hey, what's been happening across these stores in this region, and I'm gathering all that data. In those examples, the audit is really critical because we want to understand like how people may have made a decision in, what they used, what queries, prompts they might have used for that. So auditing and like what is recorded is actually really important to understand, and when to do it and when not to do it, right? And then similarly, I think one of the key foundational principles with AI should be that it doesn't necessarily give you a capability, especially a right, that you don't have already. So if you already have access to a bunch of assets, of course, surface those assets to the user in the flow of their work, right? So when I ask about, what was the latest about, Judy in my previous example, I'm asking it to only access the data that I have access to. It won't allow me to see information otherwise. Similarly, when we look at that same data scenario, what ends up happening is if I'm looking at, a person who has an organization that has a lot of holes, in their security policy, which happens a lot. So an example of that is this is one that's always causes a disruption in every customer when we do these previews of Copilot or pilots. You see these shared with everyone. They're kind of like org links, share with everyone in my org. So share with everyone in to-do-lead, or share with everyone in Xero. And people use these links all the time. But the second you use that link, technically, if I do a search, right, if you're using Microsoft Search, you will find that content now, right? Everyone in the org can find that content. Well, the reality is these links, as an example, one of many, are used a lot for really secure content, right? And it's not intentional. Someone just doesn't know what that link means. They're just trying to quickly share it. But now they've created a breach. They've created an exposure point. And it may not have been as prominently visible before because not everyone uses search. But when you use Copilot, it will find that data very rapidly. And because it finds that data, it means that, for us to responsibly enable Copilot in an org that has not planned, sensitivity labels, they don't have a strategy, whether it's Purview or something else, they haven't figured out this stuff, then, SharePoint Advanced Management, whatever, you're going to run into these problems because now, this risk exposure is more visible. It's not that it wasn't there before. It's the same risk. It's the same problem we had before. It's just now it's made more visible because of AI tools. And the trick there is not to stop Copilot from being rolled out. The trick is to solve that underlying risk that hasn't been addressed for years, because just ignoring it and saying, oh, well, we just won't roll out Copilot doesn't, or deferring it doesn't really solve, the very real risk,
like you're
which
saying,
exists already. Yeah.
like you're saying, capabilities of Copilot just expose the fact that it's already been there. And now that the hole is easy to access, well, we got to fix it properly. And I think there's an opportunity for this technology as it's coming through to fix some of those gaps or holes or whatever that exist in organizations, to make everybody better and maybe more prepared for the future. And like, I'll kind of finish with this piece. Like, as you're talking, because I'm not an expert in this space, but there's three components here. There's the legal compliance component. There's we got to train everybody how to use these tools component, because the example that you're giving with the link, like, if you don't know how to use this stuff well, if I can give you access to my OneDrive inadvertently, and I didn't realize that you have all these documents through that link. So there's that piece, and then there's the administrative link to, or the governance piece, to make sure that these things are being enforced and tracked and tweaked. So, people talk about AI, that it's going to eliminate all these jobs and eliminate all these people. I think it's just going to create more interesting work for folks to do, but we're going to have to be trained up and scaled up to use that.